Bombaklat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Full Pitched podcast. Alrighty, in for another week of just Australian football drama. There is no such thing as a normal week in the Australian Football League. To cover us off, thank you everyone. If you're watching again, welcome back. If you're watching for the first time, welcome to us. Make sure to leave a like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. This episode, we're going to do a little update on the OFC Pro League. We've been playing a lot of games, so we'll go through a quick little look through that. We'll have a look at Melbourne City. They are the lone capital of Australia. Then we're going to go through the update on the Central Coast Mariners financial situation and look a little bit into what their academy structure is going to look like coming into the next NPL season. And then we're going to go through our A-League men's round 14 review. So to waste no more time, let's get straight into it by having a look at the OFC Pro League. So for those of you who don't know, we spoke about it a little while ago, but the OFC Pro League, new competition that started up in the Oceania region, and it has been pretty successful from what I've seen. Obviously, you've got your smaller countries like your Vanuatu's, your Fiji, everything like that competing. There's a team from Australia, South Melbourne, and then we've obviously got the powerhouse Auckland FC in there as well. But the OFC Pro League, it started off pretty well. You can watch all the games on FIFA Plus, so they're live on there. The replays are all on there. No paid subscription or anything like that, so it's really easily accessible, which is absolutely fantastic, especially for such a new team starting out. But the games have also been to a pretty high quality as well. Like, obviously with the inclusion of a team like South Melbourne, you'd anticipate that it might be that kind of NPL quality. But it has really been quite an exciting league, to be honest. There's 5 rounds. I'm looking through at the moment. The website's a little bit tricky to navigate, but it's ridiculous. Anyway, Auckland FC, obviously on top of the ladder at the moment. They're 3 wins on the trot, undefeated. You've got South Melbourne, who are 2 wins on the trot. Not surprising that the clubs that come from the 2 biggest resource nations are the 2 that are leading this competition. You've got your poor little PNG right down the bottom with a loss. And that's where this league will be really interesting, because it will, for the first few years of its operations, very much be based on who's got the most resources. But as this league starts to build a bit of notoriety, I can really see it kind of taking that step forward and attracting players, because again, being in a professional competition is really good for your resume. So someone like myself, I'd be more than happy to go and play for Bulla FC or Vanuatu United, because it's a professional competition. So you go, you do your 4 to 6 month competition, you train, you play full-time, everything like that. It's just that full-time gig on your resume. So any scouts or agents out there that are looking for goalkeepers, hit me up. Just kidding. Not really. Do it. But this kind of league obviously isn't going to be competing with the A-League. It's very unlikely that we'll see the kind of numbers convert and compete against the A-League, which is already not an overly dramatically viewed league. But there's good things coming from it. And I think the important thing here for this league is just the amount of minutes. Like South Melbourne this year will play something like 60 games, which you just don't get in Australia. I think, the A-League might be 26 games potentially, including final series. Like, it's not that many games. The NPL men's competition in New South Wales, it's a 30-game league, which is pretty good. And then obviously the NPL, like top flight, have their final series as well. Football New South Wales League 1 and 2 just play first past the post. So it's good that clubs are getting the opportunity and players are getting the opportunity to play more minutes. Now, is there an opportunity for a more structured system throughout it? 100% where you can kind of consolidate so players don't have to jump around 3 clubs in 1 year. But overarchingly, more minutes for the players means more time working on their skills, more time refining their craft, more time that they're able to be in front of bigger audiences and potentially get those big contracts. So the OFC Pro League has started off fantastically. So keep an eye out. FIFA Plus, you'll be able to watch all the games for free. It's definitely something that you should go and check out. Now, on to the next slightly more contentious topic is Melbourne City and their loan period at the moment. So Melbourne City in the past week have signed 3 new players. I say new very loosely. Have signed 3 players on loan deals. So the first one that got announced was Ryan Teague, and the controversy around that being that he'd played for Melbourne Victory already and then left, signed overseas, has now come back on loan in what was a bid to kind of bring his name back up to light, ready for the Socceroos selection for this year's World Cup, which 100% is a strategic move, but going to his old club's rivals kind of watered down that rivalry. So there was that one first. Then we had Daniel Arzani be announced. Now, Daniel Arzani was a Melbourne City player who then went to Melbourne Victory. He had some brief stints overseas in between and has now come back to Melbourne City. So again, just adds more fuel to the fire of this derby means nothing. What does this rivalry mean in Melbourne? Because it surely doesn't mean anything to the players at this point. And then you have Marcus Yunus, who Western Sydney Wanderers youth, went overseas, has now come back as a loaner for Melbourne City. So 3 really big loan deals in the space of about a week and a half for Melbourne City, which, I mean, great for them. Like, they're already competitive in the league. I can't remember exactly where they're standing, but Melbourne City are already there and thereabouts within the A-League. So then to be able to get this kind of quality of player coming into the World Cup campaign, like, obviously the players, there's mutual benefit to them because they're going to come into a league where they'll get more minutes. Like, these guys were benching for their old sides. They're now going to be like regular starters, I'd assume, for Melbourne City. So they're going to get more game time. They're going to get more impressions. They're going to be like constantly looked at by the coaching staff and the selectors of the Socceroos. But then Melbourne City, also get this really strong group of players now that has just essentially come out of nowhere, helping them push forward into their A-League finals campaign. So what have we got? There's 26 rounds plus finals in the A-League. So these players coming in at around, they'll probably start playing at around 15, round 16. And then if they do get selected for the World Cup, they'll miss a couple of games there. But Melbourne Victory put themselves in a really good position here. Melbourne Victory, I've said it again. Melbourne City put themselves in a really good position here coming into the A-League final series because they've got such a really high echelon of players coming in and just pretty much injecting their squad with a hit of adrenaline. It's like fucking taking some B-League reserve grade side and just injecting them all with steroids. That's a really weird analogy to make, but it's just injecting this absolute wealth of talent, which Arzani's been off his game for a little while now. I don't personally think he'll be on the plane over to America for the Socceroos campaign. But good on him. He might have come back from other purposes, maybe wanting to go and see family, spend more time around home, everything like that. But yeah, it's just weird that there's 2 key signings out of that. Like Marcus Yunus, whatever, that's a good signing, I feel. But Ryan Teague and Daniel Arzani, they're just weird ones. It's like the rivalry, I don't know. The rivalries just mustn't mean as much to the players anymore. Like, even there's a lot of players around Western Sydney Wanderers that started off in the Sydney FC Youth Academy and vice versa. Like, you move around, you find academy spaces, But I just don't think the rivalries mean as much anymore. Like, whether it's because these cities had third teams introduced, so Melbourne City and Victory then had Western United introduced, so there was kind of a third competitor there, and Sydney FC, Western Sydney Wanderers obviously have the Bulls now as well, so there's that kind of third competitor. Maybe it's like, okay, the noise is quietened down because there's another team around, so we need to try and spread the energy around throughout the three teams. I don't know, but it seems like across the board for the players, just the derbies don't mean as much anymore. The rivalries aren't as real. And Joe K Football said as much. He's got an article on Football 360 AU where he spoke about what his perception of the rivalries are. I'm not going to read that one at the moment, but definitely go check it out, football360.com.au. Yeah, it just seems really weird that the players are so willing to just go from their old club straight into their rival club and think that it's like all sweet and fine. I don't know. It just seems a bit weird. Final news story before we jump into our review. We have the Central Coast Mariners. Obviously, they're under control of the APL at the moment while they're under their sale conditions. But it's a club that's also got quite a large academy set up, and an academy that really is quite integral to the footballing and grassroots system in the Central Coast. So Central Coast Mariners have come out and confirmed that the academy is now added to the A-League men's and A-League women's sides, that the APL Subco Pty Limited is currently managing. So that means essentially that the academy system for the Central Coast Mariners is still financially viable and able to run through the NPL system. So there won't be any changes physically to the setup of the Central Coast Mariners academy system. With the APL CEO saying the Central Coast Mariners Academy is an integral part of the community and football ecosystem on the Central Coast. It is a proven talent pathway for our leagues, and I am pleased to confirm our commitment to the academy players, parents, and coaches for the 2026 season. So there's a lot of confidence there for the players in the academy system, 13s all the way through up into their first grade men's. And it means, from my perspective as well, that they are still looking for the longevity of the club, because it is very easy, like, the academy systems aren't huge revenue raisers. Like, they do fund a fair bit, you have registration fees, everything like that, but they're not going to be able to fund an entire club. And that could be something that they could have just iced, put on the back burner, but they've chosen to keep the academy system rolling over into the 2026 season, which I think is a fantastic idea, because he's 100% right that in that quote that system is integral to the Central Coast youth development. There are other teams, like you've got Central Coast United, who are competing in League 2 at the moment. I don't know what their youth team's competing in. But in terms of a New South Wales-based competition, there's not a lot of representation from the Central Coast, but there is a lot of talent that sits within it. Like, they've got their own Premier League set up, I think, as well in the Central Coast. Like, their grassroots football is quite strong down there. Like, you go down to Plume Park to play, like me as a travelling opposition, you go down there and you don't only have your game on the main field, you've got the two other pitches that have pretty much constantly got games on them, and then you've got the five-a-side fields that have got youth competitions and stuff like that going. So it really is quite a vibrant place for football. So making sure that that academy system just keeps ticking over as well, and it's still something for the children around there to aspire and work towards, is a really big deal. So I think the APL's made a good decision there in kind of assuring the viability of the academy going into the 2026 season. I look forward to seeing how Central Coast do. Hopefully they do pretty well. I can't remember if they've gone down this year or not, but Yeah, I think they did go down actually, so we'll see how they go in Football New South Wales League 1. All right, now into our round 14 A-League men's review. First game of the week, we had Jets taking on the Wellington Phoenix with a final score of 4 to Jets, 1 to Phoenix. To keep it really short, sharp and succinct in this one, key stats, we had 50-50 possession between Jets and Phoenix. We had a 23 shots versus 17, 8 versus 7 on target. Realistically here, why the Jets had such a big scoreline. One, defensive lacking from Wellington Phoenix, but two, they are just such a youthful and energetic side that when they get in front of goal, they are more than willing to pull the trigger. You can see that in the stats, 23 shots, 8 on target. Now you might think that percentage on target is pretty low, and it is, but what it says is that Jets are more than willing to have a go at goal. Whether it's a deflection that takes the shot off target, like whatever it might be, Jets are willing to get down there and pull the trigger. And I think that's kind of, I don't want to call it youthful ignorance, but any other words are evading me at the moment. But it's that kind of mentality of getting down there and going, you know what, I'm going to score. Like if I hit this now, I'm on a chance for a goal, which I think a lot of players and a lot of clubs struggle with because they get into the box, get a foot in, and then they try and find 50 passes to find someone who's opened and is able to get a touch and then slot it in perfectly, which in football just doesn't exist. So, especially in these professional levels. So Jets are really showing that they're working hard to get down into the attacking third, and once they've got a foot in a box or they're there around, they're happy to pull the trigger. And they're supportive of their teammates when they do take that shot because they have the confidence that one will come off. If they just keep getting down there, keep working, keep that relentless pressure going, they're confident within their own abilities that 1, 2, 3, 4 of those shots will drop out of the 20 that they take. And that's what happened on the weekend. Again, 4 goals to 1. They're just getting down there and absolutely peppering the Wellington Phoenix defence, which is exactly what you want to see. It's that exciting brand of football. As for Phoenix, there's glimpses of what could be. Phoenix are a real peaks and troughs side at the moment. Like against Brisbane Roar, KO Stadium, I've mentioned it a few times, but they came in, they spoiled the party there with what was a dominant win. Then they had a lost week back at home against Adelaide, I think it was, and then they came back last week against Sydney FC. Sydney FC's return to Allianz, again, spoiled the party there. And then here with Jets, have gone down in a pretty disappointing fashion. And if Wellington do want to compete in the A-League and be up with that top echelon of Auckland FC, Sydney FC, MacArthur Bulls for this year really consistently, they need to find consistency. Whether it's the amount of travel they're doing, the fact that they're constantly back and forth on the road, they can't find a decent schedule. I don't know what it is, but Phoenix just cannot find consistency at the moment, and it's what's killing their season. And if you look back years on years on years, they've always had these couple of really good games where you don't expect them to win, but they come out and just somehow, some way snag the 3 points. But then you also have games like this, where realistically, this game against Jets should have been quite competitive. It should have been pretty level, but for some reason or another, they just aren't able to stay in the game, whether it is the fatigue from flying, everything that I just mentioned earlier. But they really are that kind of rocks or diamonds side where sometimes you get them and they're flying, they're at their best, and it's like just beautiful football to watch. You're so confident if you're a Phoenix fan, you're thinking about everything that could be. And then you get the weeks where they just aren't in the game. Like they're getting down there, they're pulling shots off, but nothing ever really looks convincing. And that's where we're at with the Phoenix at the moment, is they never really convince me that they're going to be a threat in this league, which is disappointing. But look, they're doing well to sit around mid-table. It's more just me looking at what their best football has been and going, okay, if this is where your best is, can we drop it from your best being an 8 or 9, which is pretty good, and at the moment their worst being a 3 or 4, and can we find that 6, 7, 8 in the middle there, where we're not dropping so far down and we're not conceding all these goals, we're keeping a relatively tight goal difference, but we're not having such a big disparity between our games. That, for me, is what I need to see from Phoenix. Jets, again, still the higher end of the mid-table. They've still got that gap, but the gap between their best and their worst game is a lot lower than what it is for Phoenix. But kudos to Jets, absolutely ran them off the park. Like I've said, they're a really young, really energetic, really free, youthful side. And if they can keep the majority of this squad together for the next 2 to 3 seasons, I think they come home with an A-League championship. I really do have a lot of confidence in that playing group if they're able to stay together. And I saw more news getting out about Lockie Rose and a potential move to Western Sydney Wanderers. I said it last week, I'll say it again. I absolutely hate it. I think he needs to stay in Newcastle. He's having a lot of success there. He's the leading goal scorer at the moment in the A-Leagues, playing as the 9 for the Newcastle Jets. So I just think it would be an absolute waste to move. I think he's got to see it out, trust the vision of Mark Milligan, and make sure that this core group of players stay together for as long as reasonably possible. All right, on to our next game, Auckland FC 2 versus Central Coast Mariners 2. This one, the key stats in possession were 68% possession for Auckland FC versus 32% possession for Central Coast Mariners, with a 21 shots versus 6 shots in this game. Now, Auckland FC, what the fuck are we doing? I swear all I see on social media is Auckland FC doing finishing drills. Tight games, under pressure, touch, hit, finish. Now, unless the admin's filtering through an absolute shit ton of film to find these really good goals, I don't know what's going on in this game for Auckland FC. The fact that Central Coast Mariners, we can almost say, had a quarter of the shots and still managed to tie this game is ridiculous. Now, I can't just shitbag Auckland FC on their shooting, because Redders in this game was absolutely on fire with 8 saves, had a really busy game. Some testing reasonably, some pretty stock standard, but still, when a keeper's making 8 saves in the A-League, the average is 2 to 3 saves realistically in a game in the A-Leagues. So for Andrew Redmayne to make 8 saves in that game, that is a really big effort. But again, Auckland FC have got to be finding targets. They've got to be finding areas. There's got to be better quality in the final third. They just really seem to be lacking that final third quality. As a footballing side, the stats show it. If you have 68% possession and you get 21 shots off, you're obviously doing something right in the terms of maintaining the football, your possession, your build-up, everything like that. So it really is just that final third. How are you being able to build up and then get strong shots on target? What I will also say is Auckland FC's keeper, Michael Wood, I think that's how his name said. I heard it over commentary. I'm still dicey on it, so if he hears this, reach out. What's your name? Had an absolute bludger, which I'm a keeper too. I've been there, I get it. But this one was just absolutely shocking. Completely misread the flight of the ball. Bounced out for him. Tried to jam it in against the post. Completely messed that up. Head's gone. And then it just trickles in for a really, really shit goal. Now, we've all been there. He probably beat himself up after the game for that one. Hopefully not. Hopefully the boys got around him and just went, fuck, move on, it's done. But I've been there as a keeper. It doesn't matter how many people tell you that, mate, it's all right, move on from it, you'll get the next one. You are constantly looking back and reflecting and going, how the fuck did I let that happen? And I'm pretty confident that's what he's gone through there. But it is right. what everyone's saying is 100% correct. Those things do happen. You have those bludgers. That's why you keep on going back to training. You keep putting the work in, and you hope that you can avoid the next one. But as much as I don't want to bring light onto it, it was an absolute shocker from the Auckland FC keeper. But hey, what can you do? Not much now. Game's done. In terms of the Central Coast Mariners, though, they hung in well. This one was a bit more grit than what we usually see out of the Central Coast. Again, 32% possession. That's a lot of time without the ball. So it's a lot of time where they're having to just move with shape and be quite comfortable just letting Auckland FC have the ball. And that's where I think a lot of these extra shots from Auckland came from as well, is that their shape was able to be so effective that Auckland FC just got a little bit impatient, tried to force balls that weren't on, tried to pull a shot off that probably wasn't there, and then ends up getting sprayed out for a goal kick and whatnot. For Central Coast, happy that they were able to grab a point. I think this season, probably just a bit of a write-off with everything that's happened for the club. I don't think looking for finals or anything like that is. I think what's good is future planning for next year and starting to get some younger players, some experience with essentially no pressure in. Like, they're sitting 11th on the ladder at the moment, I believe it is. So them and Western Sydney Wanderers sharing some space down the bottom of the table there. But I think this year is just a really good opportunity for Central Coast to maybe blood a few players that they see coming through their academy setup, giving them good minutes in games with relatively no pressure, and just trying to snag as many draws and wins as they can. Again, they're probably going to lose a few more on the trot coming into the later parts of this season as teams really start to hit their straps. But Central Coast, I feel just this year needs to be a year of learning. I don't think there's a lot of ambitions. I think the management need to take a lot of expectation off of the players. Obviously, a reasonable goal would be aiming to finish mid-table. You never want to finish down the bottom. But I think this year, given everything that's going on with the club, it's just a good opportunity to rewind, reset, and get ready to go for next year once everything's sorted out, and hopefully this sale's pushed through properly. And now on to Brisbane Roar versus Adelaide United. Brisbane Roar scoring 2 in this game. Adelaide United coming out on top with 3. Key stats are possession, 44% for Brisbane Roar versus Adelaide United's 56%. Shots, we had 25 from Brisbane Roar versus Adelaide's 8. This, again, I've said it a few times with Brisbane Roar, just said it with Auckland FC. It's just lacking discipline in the final third. Jets, I spoke about earlier, how they get down there and they back themselves to pull their shots off and everything like that. Now, there's a method to the madness there, and I think they get away with it a little bit more because they are such a young side as well, relatively speaking. For Brisbane Roar, the moments they're picking to take shots just aren't the right ones. They're not challenging anyone with their shots at the moment. They're building up well. Again, less percentage, but they're playing balls through. It's a little bit of Route 1 football from Brisbane Roar. It's not a lot of build-up, similar to what Auckland FC, where it's ball possession. It is very much Route 1, get down there, shot, which is great, but they need to land on target. And as I said, for Phoenix, Roar sit in a very similar vein to me, where they're rocks or diamonds. Their very best is unstoppable. Like, we saw the run that they went on earlier in the season. Like, they've got that quality of football in them. But the past few weeks, obviously being empathetic to the turbulence that's going on within the club and within the coaching staff, and like the personal effects of that. But their tippity top and their absolute bottoms are just so far apart. They just need to close the gap. And again, we can say that about every team, where consistency is absolutely key. But I think for Brisbane Roar, just knowing the quality they've got, knowing that the resources they've got going in now as well, coming into the 2030 Olympics or whatever the next one round might be, 2032, or excuse me on that, park that to the side. Brisbane Roar have an opportunity now to really have another 3 to 4 years where they're at the top of the A-League men's table, because they've got good players in the team. They've got a good mix of youth and experience. They've got good coaching staff that are really passionate about the vision of the club. But the boys need to show up on the weekend. Again, getting 25 shots off is a great number. It says you're getting down there, but the shots on target is probably more important to me, around how accurate are we shooting, or are we just putting the laces through it and hoping. But to flick now to Adelaide United, I think that they're doing a really good, like they're a consistent side this season. When I talk about your tippity tops and then your absolute bottoms, I think Adelaide United are probably one of the teams where their best game and their worst game is pretty close. Like, they've had some pretty tight losses this year. I don't recall them having any major blowouts. And then you look at their wins as well. Like, they're not winning by 4, 5, 6 goals all the time. It's very much a 1-goal affair. And they're a quality footballing side. They manage their possession well. Again, only 8 shots, scoring 3. It just speaks to they're picking the right moments. They're happy to recycle the ball or sit low in defense when they have to, and they're willing to pull the trigger on the right moments. It's when you start to get into these flustered points where you start to overthink, overcomplicate things, and that's where these big shots like 25 come from. But with well-executed patience, like Adelaide United have, you're able to kind of build into moments rather than trying to force them. You let the ball do the work, you move the defense around, you wait for the opportunity to present itself, and it's that level of patience that allows you to create these opportunities for yourself. And then a quick shout out to Joshua Smits for 7 saves in this game. I know we just spoke about Redders 8, but 7 saves, that is a really strong display from the goalkeeper. Again, like, usually as a keeper, you're expecting 4 to 5 saves in a 90-minute match, which is still a reasonable amount of work. But to make 7 saves, unfortunately conceding 2, but a really strong game from him. So just wanted to shout that one out. Always show love for my goalkeepers. We are an underappreciated species. All right, now on to MacArthur Bulls taking on Melbourne City in what was an absolute pantsing. We have Bulls 6 to City's 2, and this game was an absolute stamp of authority from the MacArthur Bulls. I don't know what was going on from Melbourne City. There was a little bit of press come out where even the Melbourne City coach confessed that, yeah, no, this game was a pantsing. The Bulls gave us an absolute run. But I think for Bulls here, what's been really interesting as a viewer of the game to sit back and look at is how the extra games are kind of having a positive influence on their side. Like, obviously there's different challenges around managing game times and everything like that. But what I've actually noticed is the teams that have played the most games are the teams that are performing the best. Go figure. Because the players are getting more time together in competitive environments, playing against high quality opposition. You got the AFC Champions League 2, MacArthur Bulls have made a deep run into that. And that, again, group stage games, they've got, 7 or 8 group stage, 6 or 7, group stage games. Now they're into the finals, they've played another one. So they'll probably end up this season playing around 42, 43 games potentially. And then you look at Newcastle Jets as well, and just their run through the Australian Cup, those extra games that they were able to get there before the season started. They're 2 teams that are both sitting 2nd and 3rd on the ladder currently. So, one, I think this is a little bit of a wake-up call to the rest of the league not to the rest of the league, to the A-leagues on how we schedule the competitions of we need more games. Like, the players benefit from it. When we look at teams like Western Sydney Wanderers and Central Coast Mariners, if we look at their preseason campaigns, what they were playing in building up, like, I know Wanderers got knocked out of the Australia Cup pretty early on as well. Like, the guys just aren't getting enough games building up into the season, and it is having an influence on their A-League championship. And look, to be completely honest, Bulls, like, they could go all the way here this year. Like, they're looking quite strong, and then you have the inclusion of Mitch Duke, just that little bit more quality up top. Like, Bulls have had some pretty close games this year, so just that minor inclusion, I'd call it minor, but it could be major inclusion of Mitch Duke up the top, who's a little bit more composed in front of goal, who's able to get a few more shots on target. Like, the amount of games they're playing, I feel, is having a direct influence on their performance. And it's a really, really fucking good one. So A-League teams need to be playing more games. It's end of discussion. Side note, Adrian Segacic said as much, where he was referencing how the A-Leagues are only 14 rounds into the season, whereas over in the Championship, they've already played like 23 going on to their 24th. Double the amount of games in the same amount of time. Like, there just needs to be more football played in Australia. The more football that's played in Australia, the absolute better for all parties involved. You cannot question me on it. Anyone who has anything else to say, obviously there's structure to it, don't get me wrong. I'm not playing 52 weeks of the year, 3 games a week. So let's just park that right there. But the fact that these multiple games throughout weeks, throughout months, like this extra little bit of loading is having a positive influence on the players because they're used to a higher amount of work. Their bodies are adapting. What I think people don't understand is that bodies are built to adapt to their environment. If you put them under more stress, they work to handle it. Now, there's a means to an ends there, but these guys are professional athletes. So more games in Australia. More games, more games, more games, more games, more games. Obviously here for player welfare, but we want more football. All right. There wasn't much of a review on the Bulls' performance, but they are just a really cohesive side at the moment. Again, more games working together. It all just works in unison. For City, this is a pretty rocks year for them. Sitting 7th on the table currently, they just haven't shown that kind of hammer hit that we've expected from them given their past few seasons. Now, it could be the fact that they've had a few players move around. It might just be fatigue from being up for so many years. It'll be interesting to see what Ryan Teague, Arzani and Yunus can do in this side, but I don't see those players being able to turn this season around for them either. I think it'll give them a really good push for finals to make that top 6, and whether they can turn that into a potential grand final appearance, I don't know. But City have a bit of work ahead of them. They're just, when they're with the ball, they play quite well. Like, their possession, they're moving the ball around, their patience, when they're in control of a game. But if there's one thing that Bulls do well, it's being right there with you, being able to grit out the game. And I think that's something that Melbourne City just aren't used to yet, is having someone go with them and be gritty and kind of mentally tear them down, is what I'll say. Because City have success against a lot of different sides when they're able to have that really high percentage moving the ball around and when they're comfortable. But as soon as they come up against someone who's able to make them feel slightly uncomfortable, even when they've got possession, who's able to just stick with them, take away all their options, not show any signs of weakness, City start to lose their head a little bit. And that's where, like, you don't usually get these kind of blowouts from a City team, but this one definitely was one that they'll remember and they won't want to feel again. So City have a bit of work to do, but look, the positive is that it is only up from here, because a 6-2 flogging, holy, that's rough. I've come up against a similar deficit last week against Northern Tigers. Check out Seth AU explores football. I think that's his TikTok, but check that out if you want to see me get absolutely pizzled by what was a pretty good attack. Anyway, our next game, Western Sydney Wanderers take on Perth Glory and get a 1-0 win. Now, the most I can say for this game is holy shit was this needed. In such a really tumultuous week for Western Sydney Wanderers, having the sacking of their old coach, Alan Stajic, having Van Egmond coming in and then Milos Nikovic in as the assistant. A lot happened in a week, and if there was a week for an excuse for a loss, it probably could have been this one. But then you look, they got some exciting new signings, the Western Sydney Wanderers. They had the, what is he, Scottish or Irish lad? I can't remember his name because I'm an absolute povo and I'm so unorganised that I didn't put it in my show notes. Where are we? But while I'm looking for that, this was just the gritty game that Western Sydney should be known for. Hanging into the end, scoring a goal, 92nd minute. Like, this is the kind of grinding of a game that fans should expect from Western Sydney Wanderers. And it's been lacking. Fraser. Awesome. I still can't remember his name. Richard Fraser, Ramick Fraser. Let me find the squad. Anyway, 5,000 attendance for this game, which is pretty poor, to be honest. Come on, guys, show out for your fans. Where did he come off the bench? Yes, he did. This is a lot of silence for a podcast. That's my bad. Ryan Fraser, perfect. Yeah, Ryan Fraser, 92nd minute, scoring, coming in from playing with Southampton, I believe it was. But Western Sydney Wanderers have made some good signings. They've obviously sacked their old manager. So I think this year obviously isn't going to be a push for the finals. As much as they'd like to put that extra effort in and hopefully be there or thereabouts, I don't feel that the finals are really an opportunity available to the Western Sydney Wanderers. But what the rest of this season should be is being able to show what they can do, giving fans a glimmer of hope going into next season. And that's what this game has started off being, is that glimmer of hope. It's showing that there's grit, there's still passion within the club, there's still that drive to be winners. And I think that that's the most important thing that they need to show at the moment, is that winning mentality. They are there to be winners. Like, you look at the club's history coming into the league, winning their first league, obviously not winning the grand final, but taking out the regular season. Then you've got them being the only Asian Champions League winners. You've got them being in the first 4 years of the history, I think, making finals in all of those 4 years. So the club's got a winning history there, but I think the winning mentality just kind of started to bleed out as players moved on, and especially as the generations changed as well. Obviously, the old guard, very ruthless in their mindset, very rugged, kind of that old school terminology, which is really just dig in, play through anything. Like, we're going to be tougher than you, and we're going to beat you off the ball, and if you want to cry about it, then fuck you. Like, that was the mindset of Western Sydney Wanderers. And then it kind of became, like, obviously a lot more youth came into the side. It sounds harsh, but they just went soft. The only game I really ever saw the Wanderers get up and about for, including their supporters, was the Sydney Derby, which is 2, maybe 3 games in an entire 26-game season. Like, you can't just be up for 3 games. So I think now they're showing that little bit more grit, that bit more determination. This game was a really good starting point for their new era. And what's going to be amazing to see is how they build off this now. Do they continue with this gritty mindset and really kind of take on a new era of football in Western Sydney? Or do they fall back into their complacent ways, doing what they were doing and kind of nothing changes? As for Perth Glory, though, obviously it's a big big trip out for them. Long way to come. But again, 1-0 isn't a huge scoreline, and Western Sydney did only score in the 92nd minute. So for the majority of this game, Perth Glory were in it. Like, they were there and thereabouts. They didn't really show too many signs of weakness or vulnerability. It just was that Western Sydney Wanderers probably had more to play for in this game. Think of the storyline. Coach gets sacked. New coach comes in. Old player comes in. We got new signings. Old player comes in as assistant coach. We got new signings. Like, there's all these things that just kind of build up into this moment. And I think Wanderers won this game off storyline, and Perth had a really positive presence, but just weren't able to see it through. Alrighty. And now, to finish us off tonight, playing probably right now, actually, we have Melbourne Victory versus Sydney FC. So obviously this one's a preview as it's being played today on Monday, 5 p.m. kickoff. But I do think this is probably going to be one of our more competitive games of the round. Obviously, Sydney FC had quite a bludger a few weeks ago, but they've come back and kind of come out with a bit more intent. You've got a hungry Melbourne Victory currently sitting 9th on the ladder. Both teams absolutely love playing with the football. Where I think that Sydney FC get caught out a little bit in this game is their ability to be patient without the ball. They're quite a young side, and when they've got possession, they do a lot with it, and they look absolutely fantastic. But games like Melbourne City, where I spoke about Melbourne City earlier, how they're really dominant on the ball, how they always look comfortable with the ball at their feet, that was probably one of the worst games we've seen from Sydney FC because they weren't comfortable just grinding through the defence. Then we saw a kind of change in attitude from them when they came up against Bulls and managed to beat them because they were able to stick in the game and grind it out. But the possession was also in their favour for that game. So with Victory being very heavily a footballing side, again, they love to win possession and then just keep the ball at feet. Wait and see if you break, move the ball around. They're quite comfortable just playing these kind of circular passes, continuing to rotate the ball to wait for you to get impatient, try and press when it's not on, and then open you up like the Red Seas. I have Sydney FC winning this one because I think as a squad, they're in better form, but it really is dependent on how Melbourne Victory utilise their ball possession and how comfortable Sydney FC are in defensive shape. Will they try and press too much or not? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is all that I have to talk about. Thank you to listening. Thank you for listening for another, what would be probably 40 minutes to an hour of me rambling. If you're enjoying the content, again, make sure to leave a comment, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, follow, all those good things. I'm continuing to post every Monday around Australian football content. The more I get into this, the more content I see, the more content I engage with. My goal is to make football my full-time job in 2026, and this podcast is going to be a part of that, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, that is me wrapping up for this week. And I'll see you when I'm looking at you.